Hello, and a warm welcome to the Reform Party podcast. We have a first today. This is the first ever time I've had a returning guest, and so I'm very pleased to welcome Mr. Nick Buckley, MBE. Hello, Nick.
Hello, and thank you for having me back. I'm honoured to be a returning guest.
Well, next week I'm going to have my second returning guest because a few months ago I did a podcast with Simon Evans, who at the time was going to be standing in the Lancashire elections. Simon did a great podcast. It was really, really good. He did a lot on something I want to talk to you about because I forgot to talk about it last week, which was the rape gangs. He did a lot with that. But anyway, as I say, now that he has been elected, and I did a few others from Lancashire who have also been elected, so I'm going to do one next week, and I'm going to tell them what, now that they have managed to seize power, what they should do with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Reform Now have got a great opportunity in 10 councils to show the country what they're willing to do if they ever get into 10 Downing Street. And even if they don't ever reach that goal of 10 Downing Street, there's so much good work they can do in those 10 councils to show the rest of the country, the rest of the councils, this is how you should be running your council, pal. This is the sort of stuff you can do. This is the local powers you have in the council. They can do so much good work. And they need to reach out. They need to reach out to people like me if they want to tackle rough sleeping, homelessness, antisocial behaviour, and the grooming gangs. They need to be reaching out to people on their wavelength and experts in the field to get things done.
Absolutely right. And that's what I'm going to say to Simon next week, that effectively he and the other 9 councils that we've got, they're going to form the template for everything else that follows. So it's very important they get it right. How radical do you think they should be in terms of what they do?
Oh, I think they need to take a page out of Trump's book. I think they have to go hell for leather because something may happen that stops them in the future. So they need to show the people now, because the people are sick of promises. I know people who voted Reform who are quite willing to dump Reform if they don't deliver or if they go down the wrong track, because let's be honest, we're sick of all politicians, and I'm a wannabe politician and I'm sick of politicians. It's so easy to say what you're going to do, and no politician ever delivers what they say they're going to do. So Reform need to go hell for leather. Don't try to change everything in those 10 areas. Pick 2 or 3 things and say, this is what we're going to achieve in the next 18 months. And by God, get it done. Fill the potholes, prosecute paedophiles, end rough sleeping, whatever they pick to do. Concentrate on that and get it done, and show the people that there is politicians and parties out there who will do what they say they're going to do. We don't expect miracles. We don't expect Reform to change everything in the world, but give us 1 or 2 things you promise you're going to fix. Fix them soon, and then show us and tell us you fixed them. And I'll tell you what, if you do that, you'll win a general election.
Good. Well, I mean, I absolutely agree with you. And I also agree that you have to start off with the most radical agenda that you can, because you know in time that it's going to be watered down. Not everybody will, all the officials, the other people that you come in, the council blob, if you like, will operate against you. So every time you say, what we want to do is this, they'll say, oh, well, you can't do that because of such and such. So you know it's going to be watered down, which is why you have to start probably even with a more extreme agenda than you actually want to implement.
Yes, I was going to say I agree with that. The alternative way of doing it is what I did when I ran for Mayor of Greater Manchester last year. It's about producing policies that don't rely on anybody else to block you. So when I was mayor, I looked at the powers I had as mayor. I had no intentions of trying to work with the 10 councils in Greater Manchester because they wouldn't work with me. They would block me. They would try to put barriers in front of what I wanted to do. So I picked the things I knew I could get done just through my office as Mayor of Greater Manchester. And that's what Reform need to do. Look at the powers you have running the council and pick the priorities you know you have full control over. Because if you're going to try to work with national government, if you're going to try to work with other parties, you're going to try to work with the regional mayor who won't be your party, their objective will be to stall you and to make you fail, because they don't want you succeeding, because you're a danger to all of them. So pick your battles, pick the battles you've got all the control over. That would be my advice as well.
What's your view? Because we got a couple of mayoralties in the elections last week. What's your view on mayors more generally?
Personally, I'd scrap them all. And that's because they failed. They sounded like a good idea 10 years ago, but they've completely failed because they turned into another political layer of our politics straight away. We have enough layers. None of our problems will be solved by introducing new political layers in the landscape. So at the moment, you live in Coronation Street, and you don't like the way, crime in your area. Who do you blame? Who do you hold accountable for that? Is it your local councillor? You've got 3 of them. Do you hold them accountable? Is it the council itself? Do you say you fund the police in my area, I hold you accountable? Is it your local MP, who may be in a government, may not be in a government? Do you hold them accountable? You've got power. Is it the minister in charge of the Home Office? Do you hold that minister accountable? Is it the Prime Minister? Is it the government? Is it the mayor? You might have a mayor now. Who do you hold accountable for your problems? And the answer is you've got no idea, because we've developed a system now that leaves the average person on the street with no idea who to blame, no idea who to hold accountable for things going wrong in their area or in their life. And I've come to the conclusion it was designed for that purpose. It's been designed so you never hold the people accountable who are responsible. We muddy the water, we introduce new politicians, new layers, we devolve these powers but not those powers. Certain areas have devolved powers, certain areas of the country don't have any devolved powers. And I'm a little bit of a political nerd, only a small one, but a little bit of a one. And I find it as confusing as hell. So the general public have no idea. Scrap the mayors, make your council more accountable. Yep.
Sorry, could I just interrupt a sec? Are you presumably in favour of scrapping the police and crime commissioners as well?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I was for them when they came out. I thought, finally, we're going to have someone we can hold accountable for mayors, for crime. And the local the mayors have taken that power now in certain areas. But other areas, you've still got the PCC, the Police Crime Commissioner. Complete waste of time. Complete waste of time. They're positions for failed politicians and new politicians who want to climb the greasy pole. And both types of those politicians do as they're told from head office. Complete failures. It was an idea we got from America, but we're not America, are we? We don't have the same system over there. So yeah, we need less politicians, less bureaucracy, less people interfering in our lives. We don't need any more.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that's one of the things I'm going to be saying to Simon next week about what he should do. I mean, one idea I've got, I had it really, if we ever get into power in Whirl, it's what I think we should do. The first thing you would do, and it's really just a way of putting a marker down to say, we're in charge now and you do what we tell you, is to take, I'm sure it's the same in Lancashire, every department will have a director and an assistant director. Now, the assistant directors are usually in a salary in excess of 100,000 Now, nobody knows what they do. Presumably, they work with the director to implement policy and so on. But what I'm going to suggest to them is that you could probably just get rid of that whole section. Make every assistant director of department redundant in the first week, and then see what happens. See if anything falls over. And I'd be willing to bet you it won't.
Oh, I mean, the waste and the duplication and the jobs in councils. I worked at the Manchester Council for 10 years. I've seen the waste. I've seen the part of my job was to push papers. Part of my job was to write reports that I knew no one ever read. I collated information that I knew no one wanted and no one cared and no one ever looked at. There's so much stuff you could get rid of at the councils. when austerity kicked in 2011, over those couple of years, Manchester Council lost something like 55% of its budget. 55%. And the only difference you could tell in Manchester was the streets were slightly dirtier in some areas. 55% of the budget went, because that's how much fat there is to cut from councils. And I quite agree, cutting some of the jobs, but they need to be more radical than that. They need to go in and go, that department goes. Not just the assistant director, that department goes. They need to take it to the bone. And then maybe next year it's like, do you know what? We actually needed 1 or 2 people doing that work. Well, hire people to do that work again then. But get rid of whole departments that are just a waste of time.
Absolutely. I found this out in my business career. I was working for a company and we were taken over by a Swedish company. And after they had what they called the hourglass model of business. So you have at the top, you have the customer facing people. So you leave them in and you leave the stuff at the bottom, but everything in the middle, you cut out. So, and what tends to happen with organizations is that over time, they will naturally want to build themselves up. People create little empires within it, and you gradually get a much less svelte organization. So they said, for example, we had an accounts department which had 14 people in it. And they said to us, in Sweden, our accounts department, we only have 1 person. So get rid of 13. And at the account department with 14 people, this had been going for 20 years. We've cut it down to 1. The bills still the accounts still went out. The bills got paid. Nobody noticed any difference. It's astonishing.
Yeah, and we have whole departments in the councils just like that. That their job is to create work for the other department, whose job it is to create work for the other department, and then the original department gets some work out of that to make sure the other departments are doing what they should have been doing, creating work for other people. It's a bit like Yes Minister and Yes Prime Minister. Those episodes were based on real life, and it's happening all the time. And our public sector is growing and growing and growing all the time. And you answer me this, is the public sector getting better and better and better? The more people it employs, the more money it spends. Are our services getting better, Ken?
No, they're not. I mean, and as I say, the difference between my experience with in the company, whereby we cut the accounts department down to 1, is that in the public sector there is no financial imperative to do that. I mean, we at the end of the day had to make a profit, and as our profits begin to diminish, we say, well, just a minute, what can we cut out? But there's never any financial imperative. In fact, there's a big disincentive because they know fine well, as soon as they say we're going to make, and I'm sure it will happen in Lancashire, if they said let's get rid of all the assistant directors, the unions would immediately be out on a strike.
Yeah, absolutely. But reform are going to have to make the unions come to heel. So you might as well start that fight. You might as well slap them in the face on day 1. Because you know they're against you, you know they're going to fight you. So let the war begin on day 1, and let the workers know why you're doing it. There's no point having a cold war with the unions. Get in there straight away. The unions in the public sector are horrendous, and we pay for those staff, in the public sector to represent the unions. And out of all my friends who work in the public sector, not one of them has got a good word to say about the unions, because when they're needed, they're just as incompetent and as stupid and as woke as everything else, and they get no service from the unions.
And there's no doubt there's been a huge amount of collusion between Labour councillors, Labour politicians, and the unions and councils. When you had the situation the other day in Birmingham where the binmen were out on strike and so on, and the Unite Union, what they found that I think it was about half of the councillors in so effectively the people on the other side of the argument were also in Unite.
No, it's a big con. The unions in the public sector have a big con. They all work hand in glove, trying to increase their own. Don't forget, the unions are fighting to increase wages for the poorly paid, but that goes all the way up the chain. So the chief executive's on $250,000. If they're fighting for 6% pay rise, he gets a 6% pay rise as well. They all benefit from it. But yeah, the unions are going to be the big stumbling block in those 10 reform council areas. So take the fight to them straight away. Catch them on the back foot, go straight for them. One of the things they can do is say to the shop stewards, the people working reform, working for the unions, right, day one, you have no offices in the council buildings that we fund as taxpayers. Your offices are gone. Your staff now are not paid by the council to represent the union. And sack them. No, you're not being paid anymore now. You get no offices. Take the fight to them day one.
I thought Nigel got off to a good start with this when he said that no reform councillors will enter into any DEI training or climate change training. We're just not going to do it. And I thought that was a great start.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the 10 councils that they're running, ensure those training courses are not available anymore now for anybody, for any staff, any councillor.
I mean, it's great. I think I'm right in saying that this is the first time that reform have ever actually had any power.
With power comes responsibility and scrutiny. So reform now are going to be under so much scrutiny because everybody wants them to fail. The Tories, the Lib Dems, Labour will all be looking at what they do. They'll be pulling it apart. They'll be making some lies up and, bending the truth about how they're failing. But if they do make some mistakes, we'll know about it the same day because it'll be in the paper. They're going to have to understand about the scrutiny they're going to be under. I'm sure Nigel Farage understands all that. But mistakes will be made because they're human. Who doesn't make mistakes? But as long as they carry on the path we want them to go down and they stop being so risk averse sometimes, the people will forgive them. What reform can't do is make a mistake and then go, we're going to change the policy on that now because we don't want another headline like that. No, embrace the headline. Tell people, yeah, that's true, we made a mistake there, but we're going to carry on because it's the right thing to do. Don't be cowardly because of poor headlines, but expect to be attacked all the time by everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I was saying earlier. You have to be careful that you don't use this fact that you are going to be scrutinised as an excuse for not doing what you should do. And I have some slight concerns. I know that the councillors who've been elected have all been invited to training sessions and so on from head office. Now, I hope the training sessions from head office are not going to be, don't do what you think you need to do. You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't. Because at the end of the day, I trust the people who've been elected to do the right thing. And the right thing is to take the radical action that's needed. I hope we do that.
Yeah, I'm sure part of that training will be you're now an elected official. You're now been elected by the people to represent them. So on your social media, that isn't just representing you and your opinion anymore now. You're now representing an area and the people who live there, and you're representing the party because you've been elected under our banner. So and quite correctly, you need to tone down your social media and you need to be a little bit more on the same page as us going forward. So that'll be part of the training, which is understandable and correct. But the rest of the training will be, and now we run a council. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? Because the exec office, the executive team at the council, all the civil servants, none of them voted for us, by the way. They now work for us, and they're going to tell you, I'm here for you, councillor, and we're going to work together, and I've got your best interests at heart. But don't believe a word of them because they've got their own agenda. So part of the training will be about that. Don't go native with the civil service because they're not on our side at all.
Great. Well, let's cheer us up a bit. I printed off the results from last week, and so I'm going to read them out, whether you want me to or not. We won 677 seats. That was a gain of 648. As you said earlier, we controlled 10 councils, and I think we have a majority, or the largest share in quite a few others. And that will be interesting to see how that pans out in terms of what deals are done at local level in order to gain influence in various councils. What do you think our attitude should be to that? We should work with others, presumably.
Oh, absolutely. Because it's not about those individual politicians. It's not about Reform UK in the grand scheme of things. It's about the country. It's about the people. So if Reform have to do a deal with the Tories in some areas to get control of the council and they do the work together, fine. If they have to have some independence, have to join the Lib Dems, as long as it's clear from the start what they're going to do and what they're not going to do, and the compromises they have to make, and be clear with the public, we're only a minority in this council. If we work with the Lib Dems, we can get these three things done. These other things we can't get done, because that's the price we're paying to work with the Lib Dems to get these three things done. Be open and honest with the people, because horse trading has to go on when you don't win a majority. So yeah, make some deals, absolutely fine. But get your hands on some levers of power to show the people of those areas change is possible and change is easy if you vote Reform UK. That's the lesson we're trying to send out to the public.
Yes, the deal should be fully transparent, shouldn't it? That's the key to it. And I have to say, I think in some ways we're not going to find it too easy in terms of deals, because I think you'll find that the other parties will probably want more from us than we need to get from them, if you know what I mean. But yes, it's going to, you see, we have to work out what are our important things. One, two, three. These are the three things we want to do. What are the three things you want to do? And then you do the deal.
Yeah, I think it'll be very hard for Reform to make any deals, because none of those parties will want to work with Reform, because it's not in their interest. It's not in their interest to have Reform grow and get better and be more electable across those areas, across the country. It's not in their interest. So the Tories might do a deal with Labour. That's in their interest, because both of them are fearful of Reform. So there'll be a lot of horse trading going on. It just might be no official deals, but we all vote independently on certain on certain policies. But it's down to those areas. There's more elections coming next May, and if Reform keep on building, maybe those areas that they're second now, maybe they can then take the councils next year.
Yeah, and of course the other thing that's coming up next year is the Welsh and Scottish elections, which will be very interesting. Particularly the Welsh, I think we'll win.
Well, it looks like Reform are going to do really well at the Welsh elections, possibly take over the Assembly. And from what I'm hearing, they're going to do well in Scotland. Not enough to take over the Parliament, but enough to be a major force in that Parliament.
The other interesting thing from the elections last week in terms of the council elections were the way that the Conservatives and Labour were affected. Tories were down 676 seats, but Labour were down 186 seats as well, with Lib Dems up 163 and the Greens up 45. So what seems to have happened is that the middle, the uni party, if you like, the Labour Conservative, were actually hurt at both ends, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. The Greens had a good election. They got an extra 50 seats, which is a lot of seats for them. The Lib Dems on paper looked like they did well, but really they didn't. You'd imagine the Lib Dems are disappointed, because normally when Labour and Tories are hated as much as they are, the natural beneficiary of that is the Lib Dems. But the Lib Dems have competition now with Reform UK. So I think the Lib Dems will be initially celebrating, we got an extra 150 seats, fantastic, but they'll be looking, that's not good enough. What are we doing wrong? And I think they're going to have a conversation about their leader, because he comes across as a clown. Ed Davey comes across as a clown. So they need to look at that. And I think Tories need to look at their leader, and Labour are definitely looking at their leader.
But with Lib Dems, it's not just, I mean, I agree, Davey is an absolute idiot, but it's not just that, because I can never understand why anybody would ever vote Lib Dem. I mean, I can understand why somebody would vote Green, if you're to the left of the Labour Party and you want to introduce Marxism into the UK. By all means, I don't agree with it, but I understand why somebody would vote for it. What I don't understand is what Lib Dems are even about. I don't know if they've got a policy on anything.
And I think that there's a flip side to that. So the fact no one knows what they stand for could be a benefit at elections. Oh, Lib Dems, oh, I'll vote for them because there's nothing I disagree with. Well, there's nothing you know about them. It also could be a reason why they didn't do that well as well. The fact that no one knows what, like you, I couldn't tell you one of their policies. I think they're vague because they've worked out being vague is actually very beneficial.
So we're just talking about you're saying about stopping the boats. Now, in a sense, stopping the boats is the easy bit, isn't it?
Mm.
What do we do with all the people who are already here?
Deport them. It's as simple as that. So, first of all, you've got to stop the boats. There's no point tackling the individuals here if more and more are coming every day. So, to tackle that, let's be honest, we're going to have to pull out of the ECHR. We're going to have to change some law in this country that Tony Blair introduced. We're going to have to pull out of the United Nations Convention of Refugees. Let's pull out of those organizations on day one. Let's do that. And then let's secure our border. And then there's millions of people in this country we need to deport. So, in London, they reckon, or in the country, they reckon there's about 1 million illegal immigrants. It'll be at least double that. At least double. Any government figure you get, I learned when I worked at the council, double it. And that's usually somewhere around, accurate. So there's about 2 million people in this country illegally, no right to be here, deport them. And then we need to look at people who are here legally. We need to say to many people and many families here who arrived over the last 20 years, it's time you went home. We'll pay for your flight. It's time you went home. And if you stay here any longer, we're going to pass a law that is going to make you pay for your own deportation. So you've bought a house here, you've got a business here, you're living here, you've got savings here. You've got a year to leave and keep all the money you've earned. Or a year from now, when we start deporting legal people here legally, we're going to deduct the cost of your deportation out of the value of your house, out of the value of whatever assets you've got. And deportation is going to be something like 35 grand per person. So we make
so to be clear, Nick, are we talking about people who've come illegally?
The people here illegally, we deport them straight away. Deport them straight away.
Where to?
To wherever they came from.
They won't tell you.
If they don't tell us, then what we do is we open up camps on the Ascension Islands in the South Atlantic, and we send them there. We send them there until we find somewhere better to send them. We do a deal with an African country, and we just dump them in Africa and pay the African government to take them. Along the way, these people will start saying, yeah, I'm from Syria, send me back to Syria. I'm from Morocco, yes, send me back to Morocco, because nobody wants to live on an island in the South Atlantic.
What about when they say, okay, send me back to Syria, and Syria say, we don't want them, we'll not let them back into Syria?
Well, then we need to pressurize Syria. So we do things like, well, you get no more visas for any Syrians at all, not even tourist visas to come to the UK. You get nothing. No more aid to Syria. And we make it perfectly clear to these countries, it's not acceptable. You take them back. Otherwise, we punish you. We punish you with trade. We punish you with financial penalties. So these are small countries. These are small, weak countries. We can force them to take their people back. And if they don't take their people back, well, they stay on the Ascension Island.
So we're talking here that's the illegal immigration.
Yeah,
we're not talking about any of this for legal migrants, are we?
Not to begin with. So to begin with, I would be saying to many, many legal migrants in this country who came here legally, are living here legally, any of them who's ever broke a law in this country will be deported ASAP. You've broken a law, you're gone. The ones who are still here, we have to have a cut-off date. We have to work out who we want to stay and who we don't. And the ones we don't want, we say to them nice and politely, time you went home. You're a guest in this country, and now it's time you went home. And you've got a year. You've got a year to do what you need to do to move back home. And if you don't move back home, then will be penalties, and it will end up in deportation. and straight away we do things like no benefits for anybody who wasn't born in this country, regardless how much tax you paid. No benefits. Um, Limited access to many of our public services. So limited access to the NHS, accident and emergency only. You get run over, we'll treat you. But anything else, we don't treat you anymore now. You don't get access to any of that. You don't get access to council housing. If you're living in council housing, you've got 6 months to vacate that, because council housing will only be for British-born people. We make it more and more uncomfortable to live here and make it less financially viable. I would also put the tax rate up for anybody working in this country who wasn't born in this country. I'd put an extra 2% on the rate of income tax, because that's what you pay for coming to our country and not contributing for generations and generations. You owe this country more if you're here. So let's tax them more. We make the country less of an easy touch and slightly more uncomfortable to live in. And many people will go home.
And who are we talking about when you say these people? Who is it we're talking about?
I'm not talking about brown people, black people, Asian people, African people. I'm talking about anybody who wasn't born in this country. That's who I'm talking about.
Somebody born in Spain, for example, who
Yep.
came over, you would have exactly the same thing.
Yes.
And would you be happy with Spain treating our citizens in that way?
Foreign countries can treat guests in their country however they wish to treat them. I've got people telling me all the time, well, we have British people moving to Spain and having little enclaves of Englishness. Well, yeah, they do. That's what they do. The Spanish allow it. Now, should they be doing that, or should they be integrating into Spanish life? Integrating into Spanish life if you live in Spain. Just because other countries allow the wrong things to happen in their countries doesn't mean we should allow the wrong thing to happen in our country. So foreign countries can do whatever they want to do, and good on them, and good luck to them. They can run their countries however they want to. I want to run my country in a specific way. So if you live in, if you're from Spain, Portugal, Romania, all those countries, yes. If you're living here and you've been here, 20 years, it's time you went home. For many of them, what is the direct criteria for them to stay? I don't know. I've not worked that out, because we're not in a position to spend any time thinking about that, because we could be decades away from this. But they would have to get criteria. Are you an economic drain on the country? Are you a criminal? Why did you move here in the first place? Have you integrated into society? Have you married someone English or British? There'd be a whole set of criteria. But the vast majority of new arrivals in this country need to go home.
I mean, I hear what you're saying. And I mean, the only thing is, if we applied a criteria like, are you an economic drain in this country, we'd be sending home a lot of our own people as well as the migrants, wouldn't we?
I don't know what you mean by sending them home.
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is we would be getting rid of a lot of our own people if you use that as the criteria for if they're a drain on our country.
No, because they're British citizens who were born here.
Yes, but not everybody's contributing.
No, absolutely not. But they're our problem, aren't they? That's the UK's problem. So we need to do better for them, and we need to make sure they pull their weight better. They're our problem. I don't want to import someone else's problem, and we've got to deal with that problem. So I know that not everyone in our country is perfect. We've got paedophiles, we've got criminals, we've got all sorts of British-born problems here. They're for us to deal with. I just don't want to import any problems.
It's not straightforward, though, is it, Nick, if we're honest? I mean, for example, what about the people who have integrated? I have a friend who came over here from Iran at the time of the Iranian Revolution. He was on the Shah's side, basically, and came over here. He's had 2 kids. He's got 4 grandchildren here. He's fully integrated. He owns a restaurant and fully integrated into the UK. You wouldn't be proposing to send him home, would you?
See, this is where it gets complicated, because there's always cases like this. And whatever we propose will be unfair on some people. We have to admit it's going to be unfair on some people. To a certain extent, that's life. Life's unfair. Um, I'm not sure what the criteria will be. That it's going to take a lot of thinking about. But my first question is: he's married. He's got kids here. Who did he marry?
Married a girl from that my wife met in the hairdressing salon.
And is she English, British?
Yeah, she's Scottish.
Right. So for me, the word integration means different things to different people, but he's married into and reproduced into the native population.
Yeah,
that's it. So for me, that's not much of a problem because I call that full integration.
right.
If he moved here because of the Shah and now he lives there, and then he called a girl over from Iran and he married her, and their children have got no English blood in them, well, that's a different thing altogether. So there's going to be no simple solution to this, and we're going to upset many people because there's no straight line to draw here. We either want mass deportation or we don't, because we all can pull out sub stories of people we know and people who, that'll be a story we never could imagine. What do we do about them? But life's unfair.
You mentioned English blood there. I mean, what you're really referring to, therefore, is a kind of ethno nationalism, whereby it's the English blood that's the important factor. Now, that's not where reform are at the moment. Is that? Do you think that's where they should be?
Not necessarily.
Because I think it would scare a lot of horses.
Yeah, I mean, just because I use that as an example, I use that as an example because he's fully integrated. He's married into the race on this island. So for me, that's fully integrated. It would need a lot of thinking about and a lot of lines drawing about what do we mean by mass deportation, who stays, who goes. And we would need to give it a lot of thought. There is no simple answers. I mean, what do we do with someone who is fourth generation Pakistani in this country, but his wife has been imported from Pakistan. His parents were imported from Pakistan. His grandparents were imported from Pakistan, and his grandparents lived in Pakistan, then emigrated to the UK. There's no English blood there, and they're living in silos and they're living their Pakistani community. But it's 4 generations now. So there is no simple answers.
Well, I hear you on that, but there is possibilities to change the rules around family if the people coming over to join them in marriage, for example, that could be stopped without.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm just slightly concerned that if reform started to try and draw some of these lines you were just talking about in terms of who we keep, who we go, who has to go, etc., it does start to get very messy. I mean, my view, for what it's worth, is that I don't believe in any kind of ethno-nationalism. What I do believe in, though, is that we need to have people integrate into this country. Now, there are other ways of doing that. And I think because the other thing is that you still have to think of the demographics. We do need people in this country. We need younger people in this country than we've got. And so therefore, some kind of smart immigration continuing is necessary. I would far rather see us draw a line and say anybody who has been introduced into this country legally can stay, but they have to then work with us to make sure that they're valuable and that they're, and indeed, we could be doing a lot with the benefit system and with other things to stop everybody being a drain on our country.
I don't think reform should be looking at this yet. We're decades away from even having to look at this. There's many small things that reform should be looking at. I mean, illegal immigration is an easy one to be looking at and to fixing.
Yeah, I agree.
There's no complication there. You're here legally or you're here illegally. If you're illegal, you get deported. That's nice and simple. I disagree with you that the demographics of this country is a problem with no young people. I don't think it is at all. It's only a problem if we don't adapt to it. The Ponzi scheme of having to import more and more foreigners to keep our workforce paying taxes to keep our old people, that's the system we have today. That system cannot last. because it's a Ponzi scheme. Because the more immigrants you bring in, 20, 30 years from now, you've got to bring more immigrants in to look after those immigrants. And then we need more immigrants to look after the immigrants we brought in to look after the original immigrants. It's a Ponzi scheme.
But the current birth rate we have here is 1.7.
Yeah.
And that's it. And a lot of that is actually because the immigrants tend to breed more quickly than we do. Now, I think that if you look at the indigenous population, it goes down to something like 1.3. Now, 1.3 is not enough. There are not enough young people coming into the system to work, to earn taxes and so on, to pay for all us older people. That's a problem.
That's only if we keep the system we have now. Technology will solve many of these problems. So there's two things. First of all, on one hand, we're being told that AI is going to wipe out all the jobs. So why do we keep importing more people? Because we're being told all AI is going to wipe out half the jobs in the country. So that's the first thing we need to look at. Second thing is technology will be doing many of the jobs we're looking at if we don't have people to do it. That's what created the Industrial Revolution, us thinking problems outside the box. When we've had huge famines and huge diseases in this country after the Black Death, and half the population was wiped out, that's when we started inventing more stuff because there wasn't enough people doing the jobs. So we will figure that out. Another reason why the indigenous population in the UK are not breeding as much as they are is who can afford it? Because mass immigration has increased the price of houses. Mass immigration has kept the wages, jobs are being paid, forced wages down. Our societies are crumbling. There's no cohesion. Why are we bringing more children into the world when it's not a child-friendly country anymore? So if we start improving the country and we use AI and we start using technology better, maybe our children will be more inclined to have children and want more children. There's lots of external factors pushing down on people not to have children. And if it was a better world and a better country, more affordable, I'm sure we would be having more children. But demographics itself, I'm not worried about that at all.
Well, you may be right in that, but it's not just a UK issue. I mean, if you look at places like Korea and Japan and so on, they are not the birth rate is not sufficient to keep them going as a viable country, and we would quite quickly get into that situation, I think.
Again, I need to push back on the viable country. When you say viable country, you mean the way the country's run today.
Yeah,
things will change.
Eventually, taking it to its logical conclusion, there'll be no people in the country because they'll all be dead.
But we will have the West. The world is going to have population decline. That's what all the AI models predict. Population decline to a certain level where it's stable, because of whatever the factors that influence to have children will start changing. So predicting what's happening now and then predicting it into the future is just our best guess. But there's so many things that we need to be looking at. Thinking that population decline is a problem at this moment in time, I think isn't worth any energy. We've got so many other problems we need to fix. And if we fix those problems, coincidentally, we might start fixing the low birth rate in the West.
Well, let's hope so. Look, as I say, I'm aware that we've had a few technical issues for people who haven't been aware, and I'm aware that we're starting to get short of time. So, is there anything else you'd like to talk about before we say goodbye?
The results at the election last week.
Yeah. Let's keep a smile on our faces.
Amazing. I knew Reform would do well. I was hoping Reform would win the Runcorn seat and did by 6 votes. Amazing.
And I don't know if you saw my podcast last week, but I personally got those 6 votes out.
Good for you.
But everybody's saying that.
Yeah. The Leicestershire mayor, I knew they had a good chance at winning that, and he stormed that. The biggest surprise for me was winning the 10 councils. I thought they might pull off 1, maybe 2. But even then, I was thinking if they win no councils, it'll still be a success if we can get 500 seats and stuff like that. It was beyond anyone's expectation. And anyone now who has the cheek to say Reform is just a protest group, Reform can't win a general election, Reform of this, Reform of that, that doesn't hold water anymore now. And I think Reform now is seen as an even bigger danger today than they were 2 weeks ago, because voters like winners, and there'll be many people who didn't vote or voted Labour or Tories and thought about voting Reform, but then said to themselves, they haven't got a chance in hell. I might as well stick with who I know. But now they're going, Reform of the opposition now, basically. Reform could win the general election. Reform of running councils. People like winners, and winning is contagious. So I think they're going to attract even more votes away from the Uni Party. And they're going to, behind closed doors, I think Labour and Tory are pulling their hair out, and they haven't got a clue what to do. And they can see their parties dying if they don't do something.
I did a podcast a few weeks ago with one of our committee members, and in it we outlined exactly what our plans were for Wirral Borough Council. And when we haven't elections till 2027, but when we get in, what our plans were. And I sent a copy of the podcast round to every 66 councillors, all 66 councillors on the Wirral. I sent them a copy of the podcast. Now I imagine quite a lot of them didn't look at it.
Yeah,
I was just thinking the other day, I wonder how many of them are going to go back into their email file and pull it out and have a wee look now. I think there'll be quite a few.
Well, they should be, because you need to know. You need to know what's going on. You need to hear people in Reform and hear what they're talking about. And I mean, huge changes. I mean, I've been saying it for a while, but and the election last week proved that huge change is coming in this country. Huge change. The conversation we just had then about immigration, we couldn't have had this 2 years ago. I wouldn't have dared say what I've said today 2 years ago. I dare to say it now. And some people call me a racist. Don't care, because most people won't anymore now.
I don't call you that at all.
No. Yeah, but 2 years ago, we couldn't have had that conversation.
There is an interesting conversation to be had, though, in terms of what kind of nationalist party reform are going to be, whether we are going to be, as I say, an ethno-nationalist party or not. And I don't know how it's going to go. And it's not, again, it's not a racist thing at all. And I think the big elephant in the room in that conversation is Islam. And I think we really need to understand more about Islam and more about how much of it is really a supremacist organization, and how much of it is more anodyne. So anyway, that's one for the future, I think. I mean, once again, I haven't got round to talking about quite a lot of the things I wanted to. I mean, I thought the thing with Lucy Powell this week was appalling, and I had planned to do 5 or 10 minutes on that. So perhaps we can do it another time, and we'll do it on Zoom next time, so we don't have these technical issues.
Yeah. Anytime you invite me, I'll come along.
Great. Thanks very much indeed again, Nick.